Well, hello everybody and welcome back to Retro Hack Shack After Hours, my second channel where one of the things I do is eWaste Wednesday. That's where I go to eWaste and I find a lot of goodies for a very low price. So today we're going to be taking a look at these two Kaypro machines and this original Atari 800. Maybe it'll work, maybe they won't, maybe they'll need some repair, and that'll end up on another video talking about some really cool history actually, especially for those Kaypros that I think a lot of people don't really know about. Anyway, it's coming up right now on the Retro Hack Shack After Hours. Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to the second channel. Please subscribe, by the way, if you haven't already. I try not to mention that too much, but I'd like to grow this channel a little bit more, even though it is my second channel. But anyway, we're here for another edition of eWaste Wednesday, and I've got some great finds to share with you today. And as always, at the end of the video, I will reveal how much I paid for these eWaste treasures. I haven't done one of these videos in a while, and it's not because I haven't been going to eWaste. It's just because I've had other things that I've wanted to explore and record and share with you all. So yeah, it's just been a while for whatever reason. I've got a ton of stuff stashed away for future eWaste Wednesday videos. I'm going to try to take a look at these machines, and if they're not working, maybe they'll become a main channel video. We'll see. For me, these Kaypro machines are the star attraction. There's a Kaypro 1 and a Kaypro 2. And these Kaypros have the distinction of being the first CPM Kaypro that Kaypro put out and the last CPM Kaypro that Kaypro put out. And you might expect that the Kaypro 1 would have been the first CPM machine and the Kaypro 2 would have been the last CPM machine, but you would be wrong. There's a really interesting history behind the Kaypros. The Kaypro 2 is actually the first Kaypro that was introduced, and the Kaypro 1 was the last CPM Kaypro that was put out. Really crazy, I know. If you look at all the model numbers, there is no rhyme or reason, it seems. I don't know how Kaypro enthusiasts kept up with all of this nonsense in the model numbers, but it is what it is, and I'll go over all of that in a dedicated Kaypro history and repair video on the main channel. So I'll take a look at those in a minute. But first, there were some other things that I found as well. I don't always show everything on the channel. I found some PC fans, some newer PC fans, some Noctua fans and things like that, just sitting in a box that somebody had dropped off for whatever reason. I figured they weren't working, but I brought them back home, tested them, and sure enough, they're working just fine. So I have some brand new silent fans. Like I said, I think one Noctua and two Corsair fans, some of the newer like Ice Cool, whatever their latest lingo is for these fans, but they're very, very powerful and at the same time very quiet. So I stashed those away for use in some future product, but you guys don't necessarily want to see the new stuff. You want to see the old stuff. So here is one thing I found, which is super interesting to me. I've never seen one of these before, but I don't think it's that rare or anything. But basically, it's a way for you to convert your 30-pin Sims into a 72-pin memory module by use of this board here. It's basically just four sockets here for the 30-pin Sims, and then that just goes down to the 72-pin card edge connector there. And this is from a company called Chameleon Technology Simmverter, okay? And what's interesting to me is I always figured that it was probably possible to do this, but you would have to use some sort of chip or something to manage the 30-pin Sims and make them compatible with the 72-pin ones. But no, apparently not. And yet it says right over here, patent pending. In fact, it says it on both sides, patent pending technology. And all it is really is a PCB that anybody could get created today at PCBWay, for example, for a couple of bucks plus shipping. So, you know, really kind of interesting to me that they're trying to patent this technology, but whatever. If you know more about these, let me know in the comments below. I can't really test this right now because all the systems I have require at least two 72-pin memory cards in them in order to work. I don't have one that just takes one, but yeah, if you know more about this, let me know in the comments below. And I was super glad to see this Atari 800. If you watched my video about measuring the temperatures of old 8-bit systems, I was not able to do an Atari 800, the original Atari 800, in that test. I had to resort to an Atari 800 XL, and that's because I didn't have an Atari 800 until now. For whatever reason, I hadn't found one of these in the wild, unless maybe in one of my shelves, there might be one hiding in there. I didn't dig through, take everything off those shelves in order to find. So maybe there is in a box or something. Maybe I do have an 800. It seems like I must have someplace. But anyway, I just found this one, so that made me really, really happy. It's in questionable condition, I would say. It's pretty clean for sure. It's missing one key here, so that's not too bad. Could be worse. But when I picked this up, I did notice that it has a rattle. Yeah, so there's a screw or something in there that's rattling around. It would be great if it was this missing key. Maybe somebody was working on this and they just took the key, it wasn't fitting or something. They took the key and put it inside. Wouldn't that be nice? But I don't think that's the case. I think there's a screw or something that's literally loose inside of this thing. But let's just go ahead and open this up and see what's in here. Ooh, a couple of cartridges. So we have Space Invaders here. That's kind of cool. And then Donkey Kong cartridge. Awesome. I definitely have Space Invaders, but I'm not sure I had Donkey Kong by Nintendo. Of course, this came out way before the NES did, but Nintendo was making games, including Donkey Kong for home systems and the arcade and other games as well. So yeah, really cool to see a Donkey Kong cartridge. If this thing's working, we're definitely going to have to try that out. Now, I believe there was memory expansion behind here in this great big metal case, because this metal case was required for RF purposes for the FCC to be able to bless this so that it could be sold in the United States. So they built this big honking aluminum or cast aluminum or whatever this is, metal shielding around some of the internals in the Atari 800 so that it could finally be sold. But boy, if you've ever opened up an Atari 800, it's kind of like, what in the world is going on? There we go. And yes, indeed, this is full of expansion modules. So let me get these screws out that fell in there. But this is for sure full of expansion modules. So this first one here, I think, is the ROMs. So first up, we have this personality card, I think they called it, or it's really just a ROM card. It has the OS, I believe, stored on these ROM chips, maybe a character generator. I'm not going to look this up too closely, but you can fill me in on the comments below. But this is a CO12989 Rev E. And I thought this would be in some sort of a cartridge package, but it's just a bare board. And this is from 1979. So this is like first gen stuff here, very early on for the Atari 800, if memory serves me correctly. And then there are, as you might expect, three 16K RAM cards to bring this to a total of 48K of memory. And these boards are marked 79, but the chips, the date codes on the chips are marked 82. So either these were installed later or this system might have been from 1982. So maybe it's not as early as I thought. I'm just looking for the date codes on these other card here. It's hard to see, but I think I'm seeing 82 on these cards as well. So I guess it's not a really early one. I guess this could be probably is a later Atari 800 actually. So normally I would probably just leave something like this apart in case I needed to get back into those cards or something when I was doing my testing. But in this case, I'm actually going to put this top back on, and that's because with the Atari 800 and the Atari 400, there was a little switch here in this little hole, and there's a tab that goes into that. And if you don't have the door closed, then the system won't turn on. It actually cuts off the power. Of course, you could defeat that switch if you wanted to. You could stick something in there, whatever. But I'm just going to put the cover back on for now, since that's the easiest and quickest way for me to deal with this. But yeah, if first time using an original Atari 800 or 400. I'm calling them original because they're not the XL line. But if you're using one of these guys that came out back in the day, then yeah, just be aware that the 400 and 800, you gotta have this lid on. Now, there was not, at least as far as I could see, a power supply that came with this 800 when I saw it in eWaste, but that's okay because I have some extras. Here is an Atari 800 power supply, 9 volts AC, and you can see it's got a little check mark there because I tested it, so I know this one is good, and it's basically just a 9 volt transformer, so not a whole lot can go wrong with these bricks. They're pretty indestructible, really. And the reason I have this is because I got them from a fellow YouTuber named Michael Wessel. He actually gave me a bunch of power supplies. Well, he was getting rid of them. I saw an ad on Craigslist that he put out, and he was nice enough to ship me these heavy things in the mail. And so he gave me some of these. He gave me some TI-99 power supplies, some ZX81 power supplies, and even at least one Spectrum power supply that is from the UK. So I'll need a transformer for that one. I couldn't test that one. But yeah, I've tested this one and it works. So thank you, Michael. And Michael has his own YouTube channel, as I mentioned, and you can look him up on YouTube, Michael Wessel, and it's at Michael Wessel 4953. If you want to look him up. So go check out Michael's videos. So thank you again, Michael. Now, before I test this Atari 800 out to see if it's still working, I want to thank the sponsor of today's episode, PCBWay. PCBWay offers inexpensive PCB manufacturing and a whole lot more. Need assembly services? No problem. They can do front side, back side, through-hole components, you name it. They also offer 3D printing, CNC milling, and more. So check out PCBWay for your next project, and I thank them for their support of the Retro Hack Shack. Okay, well, I've got the everything hooked up here. I got the RF output hooked up to a TV. So let's just go ahead and turn it on and see what we get. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Oh, that's, well, not quite working. Atari Computer memo pad doesn't say basic, and the L key apparently is stuck. And there's nothing else. It's not even letting me put any other keystrokes in. The good news for this is that it actually does look like it's working. Oh, there we go. There's nothing impinging the motion of the key, and now the key works just fine. And the other keys work. Let's just go ahead and see if this has, I believe they have the built-in diagnostics. I know the XL does. Let's see if the 800 does. You have to hold down the option key or something when you turn it on. Well, I guess the Atari 800 doesn't have diagnostics mode. I held down start and turned it on, and it was looking to boot maybe from the floppy disk or something like that. So yeah, I'm not real sure, but it does look like, number one, the keys are all working. There's no bouncing of the keys or anything. The keyboard is working really wonderfully well, so that's good. Let's go ahead and try out Donkey Kong, see if that works. Sure enough, there's Donkey Kong. Let me get a joystick real quick. Yeah, it's working fine. Whoa, whoa! I am not used to those those barrels going like that. It's so weird to see Donkey Kong on this side, number one. Not a very faithful reproduction of Donkey Kong for Atari, I must say. Oh, I do not like this version. I am not used to it. I mean, the Atari version, the Atari 2600 version was crap. This is way better, but yeah, it's got a long way to go from some of the better ports of Donkey Kong, that's for sure. But it is working. What is making that noise? Whoops. Well, there's the speaker. I don't think it was that. Maybe it was. Could have been. Is that all it was? I think it was just the speaker. I can't find anything else rattling. I've got the thing apart. I can't really see what else it could have been. So maybe just the speaker had fallen out and that was kind of rattling around inside the case, because I really don't see anything else loose in here at all. Well, with that, I think I'll go ahead and put this back together, clean out the inside of this case in the sink, make sure that that is nice and clean before I put it back in, and then I'll probably, maybe not right now, but I'll come back to this and give it a good wipe down with some glass cleaner, some Windex, and then this thing should be good to go. I just have to find one replacement key. Hopefully I can find that online without too much issue. Okay, so now let's turn our attention to these two Kaypro boxes. And even though the Kaypro 1 came out 4 years after the Kaypro 2, if you just looked at the bottom of these two units, I mean, they look very, very similar. The only difference is there are a few more vents over here on the Kaypro 1. Like they did just a little bit of a different layout here in the vents on the bottom, but otherwise, I mean, you would think these came out at the same time or are very closely related in age, because almost nothing has evolved in the 4 years between these two machines, at least from this angle. And looking at the side, you can see that the original Kaypro 2 has Kaypro 2 written on the side and a little bit more graphics there, breaking that up, while the logo seems to have evolved just slightly between the time that this came out and the time the Kaypro 1 came out. And they don't even put the 1 on the side of the case. That was probably pretty smart, because if the cases were all basically the same, they could reuse this style case that didn't have the model number on it. They could reuse this one between multiple models that they had at that point, so they didn't have to make specific ones for each particular model. Taking a look at the back, you can see, again, a lot of similarities, but some differences on the back here. They both have apparently a power supply and a switch in this area because there's a fuse and a reset button, which is nice to have. Early machines didn't always have reset buttons on them. The Kaypro 2 up here has a serial port, a printer port, and here's where you plug in the keyboard to the back. And it also looks like someone has modified this. This looks like a loopback adapter. In fact, can I take that off? Yeah. So that it's a kind of a joystick, 15-pin joystick style port. And someone has made a loopback adapter for it, which was still on here. So we'll have to see what that is. Not a ton of expansion in these things. So people did make mods for them, tried to work them in wherever they can, and it looks like this one at least comes with one interesting mod. Brightness control is over here on the right. In this case, you need a screwdriver to, or some sort of a tool to go in and adjust the brightness, whereas the Kaypro 1, I keep wanting to call this the Kaypro 2 because it came later. The Kaypro 1 down here has a knob, built-in knob to control the brightness of the screen. Looking down here at the Kaypro 1, we've got a parallel printer output port here, and then we have serial modem and serial printer over here. Here's where the keyboard plugs in, and then there's an extra slot here. There was a model that came out before this that had a built-in modem, but it looks like in this case you would need to use the serial connection to go to the modem, or perhaps there was an expansion that you could plug in and add a modem to this board. Otherwise, they look very, very similar. It looks like the headquarters didn't change in the intervening 4 years. It still says 533 Stevens Ave in Solana Beach, California. Same thing down here. It looks like this one may have come from a dealer or may have been serviced. It says Able Microcomputer Systems out of Milpitas, California, not too far from where I am. So these Kaypros were, of course, portable. They were luggable computers, much like the compact portable or the Osborne. In fact, Osborne, I believe, was the inspiration for the Kaypro line of computers. And they came with a keyboard attached, which is right here. So the way this just unclips here is you just pull the tabs here, and I believe this rocks back. There we go, like that. And get the one on this side, and then the keyboard comes down. And look at this. I haven't been in this machine yet. Did not know I was going to find this. This machine came with a polarizing anti-glare display here, which is kind of falling apart a little bit, but that's pretty cool. Now, one thing that the Kaypro stood out for, and I'll cover this in my history a little bit more detail, but one reason they stood out among other portables or luggables at the time was they included a lot of software. So it might have been the same price to get a Kaypro as it would have been for a compact portable or something else. But not only is this a CPM machine, and the compact portable was a Intel-based, 8080-based, and so on based machine. But yeah, you got all this extra software, CPM software that was available for you, and it came bundled together when you bought your machine. And this one has an overlay, and it's actually looks like it's either glued down or taped down for a program called Perfect Calc. So you have a cheat sheet here, as was a similar kind of thing would have been done on IBM keyboards at the time. Like if you got WordPerfect you're running or something like that, you'd have a little strip that went across for your function keys. And it looks like this had a lot of special keys and combinations that you could use to do various stuff with this program called Perfect Calc. And whoever had this machine actually glued or maybe used double-sided tape or something. Maybe it came that way. You could just peel it off and stick it on for this program called Perfect Calc. And it says right down here at the bottom, ClearTech for Kaypro computers. So if you used one of these overlays on a Kaypro or on an IBM machine, let me know which program you used it for in the comments below. And the keyboard itself is okay. It feels very much like an Apple II kind of keyboard. It even has the bell key here with the G, so maybe this was a Dynetics, I believe is the name of it, keyboard or something like that, because the key switches, they're not bad, but they feel like if you press on the side here, and maybe it's just because they haven't been used in a while, that they might stick and not go down very easily in terms of just being a very smooth key press. But nothing wrong with it as far as I can tell. I'll find out more when I test this thing out and do the repair in that main video. Taking a look at the front here, one of the nice things that I did not anticipate, since I've never used a Kaypro before, is the way that this is constructed with the way the keyboard is attached to the front of the computer here. It actually leaves quite a bit of overhang where the metal actually comes out over the CRT. So if you were using this in a bright environment, this would provide a little shade for you. I never anticipated that benefit from using a Kaypro, so that's pretty cool. One thing you'll notice here is a big, I believe it's a 9-inch CRT. And like I said, they were basing this as a successor or as a competitor to the Osborne. And the Osborne only had a super tiny 5-inch CRT. And by using this 9-inch, I believe, CRT here, yeah, it's about 9 inches. This would have been a big advantage if you were shopping and trying to compare this with an Osborne. Now, there's a couple of interesting switches up here. I assume these were stock, but I'll have to do a little research and find out. There is a slow and a fast button toggle switch all the way up here at the top. I guess that's for changing the clock speed on the processor probably. There's also a reset and run toggle switch up here. You have a brightness control on the front as well. So maybe that one on the back was contrast, not sure. A power LED. There's two full height drives here, drive A and drive B, and they both have removable cardboard that would have been in here to protect them. And this one, I can already tell, is broken like a lot of these latches are. Probably a tandem drive, not sure. Maybe it's a Shugart, but yeah, this latch is broken and I'll have to fix that. This one down here is working. It sticks a bit, but at least this drive down here is working. So worst case, I could switch these drives out if I needed to get something to boot and can't repair this right away. But I think I've got stuff to repair this with. And look what I just found. It's one of those nylon pins that fell out and it goes to the floppy door there. There's a little hinge in there and these nylon pins go in to make the door work. And when the hinge breaks, then these things often fall out and you can never find them. But yeah, it was just sitting on the table. So if I can find the other one, or maybe the other one's still in there, I might be able to make this repair pretty quickly and easily. And how cute is this? They have little instructions in case this is your first computer on how to open and close the latch on the floppy drives. Look at that. That is pretty cool. I've never seen something like that before. The other thing I noticed down here is this badge, which says plus 88. So maybe this was an upgraded Kaypro 2, not sure. It looks like this sticker was just kind of stuck on there. Doesn't really necessarily look like it was from the factory, but I don't know. Hopefully this is an upgraded system. All right, well, I've got the screws off the outside. Hopefully this just either lifts up or slides off somehow. Oh yeah, there we go. And now we can see, indeed, there is a mod here. And in fact, I think these switches might be mods as well. I don't think those are original. Kaypro owners, if you know, let me know down here below. And I didn't even see this one up here. I totally missed it. It's a 4 megahertz versus 5 megahertz. And it also has the fast slow option and the reset option. So was this an aftermarket mod, or did they put this in here? If you want to go just a tiny bit faster, you can go with 5 megahertz versus 4. Pretty interesting. There's also a mod here at the top for that other connection, and I'm not seeing this mod actually goes over to, or I don't even know if it's a mod, but it goes over to this board. There's a board on the back of the floppy drives, so we'll need to take a look at that and see what that is. And that one looks like has some additional memory on it. Wait a minute. I remember reading about this. Plus 88. I think I know what this card is back here with the additional memory on it. I'm almost certain, let me unplug this for a second. I'm almost certain that this thing has an expansion on it to run an Intel 8088 board so that you could run MS-DOS or Z80. Oh my word. So this is definitely the Z80 chip here, and then this mod board runs over to this. And I even think that there was a way to use the memory of the over here on the Intel 8088 board as like a temporary RAM disk or something for the Z80. So not only could you boot up MS-DOS or CP/M, but you could actually use the additional temporary storage over here, use the memory as temporary storage to store your programs in from Z80 or whatever when you weren't running MS-DOS. Oh my word. I thought this was only available in the Kaypro 4. So when I saw this plus 88, it didn't make any sense to me. But now the fact that this label looks like an aftermarket add-on, and the fact that this thing has this board in it here, I think somebody upgraded their Kaypro 2 with this particular board, either from another system, or maybe you could buy this aftermarket to add to the Kaypro 2. I can confirm this really quickly. I'm almost 100% sure this is what this is though, but I can see the CPU here. Let me just clean that off a little bit. Let's see if I can take a picture with my phone and verify what this chip is. Yeah. Yep, there it is for sure. This is an NEC chip. I can see that the date code is 1982, 19th week, and there's the model number right there, D8088D. So this is exactly what this is. Somebody upgraded this. How lucky am I? When I was first reading about this, I was like, well, I picked up this Kaypro 2. I guess I'll have to be on the lookout for a Kaypro 4 plus 88, because that just seems like the Mac Daddy of all Kaypros. And yet here I have one. So cool. One thing I like about this is the way that they put this together with the board, the main board right on top here like this. That is really nice. If you needed to get in here and troubleshoot some things on the board, and a lot of these chips are socketed, you could do it much easier than having to disassemble the monitor part and take it out. It really does make it easy to work on, and it's too bad they didn't incorporate more easy expandability for this thing, but I guess that just wasn't in the works for them when they put this thing together. Of course, with this machine having a built-in CRD, I will throw a word of warning out there. I'm going to be turning this on in a minute, but if you're working on any kind of machine that has a CRT in it, or just the CRT itself, be very, very careful, because there are high voltages and you can give yourself a nasty, nasty shock and maybe do some permanent damage. Now, just taking a look at the CRT board down here, there's a flyback transformer, and then there's the power supply board in the back there. And I can't really see, I've got to use my flashlight to look in here at this point. Can't really see if there's any REFAs on that board or not. I'm going to have to do a little bit of research. I don't see any. Yeah, might be worth just powering this thing up and seeing if it works. Okay, as always with these machines, I want to test for shorts and I want to test for voltages before I turn everything on and do a hot test here. So I've disconnected the power supply rails that come from the power supply into the main board. I still have the floppy drives connected though through power. And nicely, it's going to be, you're not going to be able to see this really, but they've got everything labeled on the main board for what the voltages are. So they've got +5, ground, +12, and -12 nicely labeled there. That's all that comes into this board. So let's just test the motherboard part of this first for shorts. We should hear, if the resistors or if the capacitors are working, we should hear a little beep as I test each one of those as the capacitors are charging, but then not a dead short. So here's the 5-volt rail, and it's got some resistance on it. That's good. Here's the positive 12-volt rail. No shorts there. And the negative 12-volt rail, also no shorts there. So that's just testing that to make sure I had it set correctly. So yeah, there doesn't look like there's any dead shorts on the motherboard itself so far. Okay, testing the power supply now, also for shorts in the power supply, and the 5-volt rail is looking normal. 12-volt rail, again, it's got some resistance on it, so that should be good. And -12, no shorts on negative 12-volt rail. All right, well, this is kind of, this particular connector is a little different, and it's going to be a little bit harder to test because I can't just stick my probes in like you can with a standard Molex, 4-pin Molex connector like you'd have in a PC. But I think we're ready to do a smoke test, at least on the power supply. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the power supply on. Oop. And I actually think I heard the CRT high voltage come up. So sorry, my hands are in the way here, but this should be the 5 volts, and we're getting 5.091, perfect. If I move this over, we should be able to test the 12-volt rail, 11.76, which is a little low, but not too bad for 12 volts. That'll be perfectly fine. And -12, -12.26, baby. So at least the rails that are going into the motherboard are good, and we've got no shorts on the motherboard and no shorts on the power supply. Okay, well, because this is so exciting here, I'm just going to go ahead and go for broke. Everything looks to be in good working order, no problems on the power supply or anything. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn this on. I should at least get some sort of, welcome to Kaypro message, I think, on here. Don't have any floppy disk to properly boot this thing up, but let's just go ahead and turn it on. And now it's got me wondering how I need to have these set so that I can switch back and forth between the two CPUs. Okay, well, let's go ahead and try this out. I've got the settings set for 4 megahertz slow. I figure those are the safest options. I don't know. And of course, I've got it set for run mode. So let's just power it on. Hopefully nothing blows up. Here we go. Oh, that's good. Got a power light. It's trying to read drive A. And yes, here it comes, here it comes. Pro 8 monitor version 3.3. Please place your diskette into drive. And it looks really good. Oh, it gets so bright if I want it to. Wow, green screen monitor, and it looks fantastic. Hopefully you can see that on the screen, but that looks really good. I can see a bit of the raster stuff in the back, so I think the contrast needs to be adjusted a little bit, but that is so bright and readable. Unbelievable. So like I said, I don't know if this drive just runs for forever until it finds something. So I think what I'm going to have to do is in the full video, I'll kind of go over after the history. We'll get this up and running. Get the drive fixed, get everything working, and then boot and maybe play some games or something like that towards the end of that video. But this is looking really, really positive here. I cannot believe this thing is working. And the thing that really gets me with this is that this was on a pallet ready to be destroyed, and nobody cared enough, well, except for me, to go and grab it and save it from the scrap heap. And it's completely working. I mean, this thing belongs in a museum. I mean, I know it's not that rare or anything, but I mean, this is a great working system, it seems like, and should be pretty easy to fix up and clean up and have it really running reliably. So it just bugs me. I know people have to get rid of stuff. I'm not trying to dump on anybody, but man, I can't believe this was on the pallet, ready to go into the trash heap, or at least go to scrap and be torn apart. And I'm so glad I was able to save this one. Wow. Well, I've got the Kaypro 1 taken apart here and ready for inspection. This one is much simpler design than the black face of the Kaypro 2. It looks like they simplified things just using a steel chassis in the front here. So no switches, no dials, only a power button up here, and then 2 vertical half-height drives, which is kind of nice actually, to have those available. You don't see those very often, but yeah, much simpler on the Kaypro 1 here. And same with the keyboard, much simpler design, not a lot of mods, only some little stickers put on here by somebody, you know, designating some special things. There's a quick menu, character, word line, almost like this was used for WordStar or something. We'll have to get in and take a look and see what that was for. But yeah, not any mods or anything like that that I can see. It looks like a very, very simple stock Kaypro 1. Now, just like before, I'm going to check the voltages out, but strangely, this connector is zip tied up here. So there's a third connector, maybe for a hard drive or something like that, that just came with this particular model. Not really sure. The floppy drives are plugged in though, and power switch is off. So again, let's see if this is the same connector as on the other one. And it looks like it is. So from that, I can kind of gather what these voltages are. There is quite a bit of corrosion on the power lines here, so I might have to put some deoxit on that. There we go. I've got this in continuity mode, so we can go ahead and test out if there's any short. Let's do shorts on the motherboard first. So are there any shorts on the motherboard? This should be the 5-volt rail. And we've got some resistance there, so no dead shorts. That's good. This should be the 12-volt rail. Nothing, no shorts. And the negative 12, no shorts on the board for that. And let's go ahead and test the power supply. So this should be the 5-volt rail. And I should get some resistance there coming up from the capacitor, but I'm not seeing anything. Hopefully that's not a bad sign for the power supply. I would have expected at least some resistance on the 5-volt rail. There's resistance on the 12-volt rail, like I would expect. And negative 12, we didn't see any resistance on negative 12 on the other machine, so maybe there isn't. But the fact that there's no resistance on the 5-volt rail is worrying me a bit. But the good news is there's no dead shorts. There is a big tantalum cap right here, though. That kind of worries me. So anyway, yeah, let's just go ahead and do a test of the power supply. The power supply is most likely still connected to the CRT here, so that should draw plenty of power. Plus the floppy drives are connected to power, so that should be plenty of draw to get this power supply started. Now let me plug this in, and okay, let's turn it on and see what we get. Ooh, that's not good. I'm not hearing anything on the CRT. And this switch is really crusty, this power switch. I'm not hearing anything on the CRT. This might be a dead power supply. Yeah, so here's the spectrum analyzer. Oh, it's going crazy when I'm talking, sorry. But I should be seeing a spike here around 11 or so kilohertz, I think, 15 kilohertz. Should be seeing a spike up in this range over here if the CRT was working, and there's nothing. So this certainly looks, the CRT part anyway, certainly looks dead to me. So I don't have much hope. It could be a blown fuse, I suppose, from a power perspective, power rail perspective. I'll get that on there, and then this should be 5 volts. Let me put this in volt range. There we go. This should be 5 volts. Getting absolutely nothing. Nothing on 12. And nothing on negative 12. I think this is a blown fuse problem, because I'm not seeing anything. Yeah, so this one is dead as a doornail. It could just be corrosion on maybe the switch is bad, or it could be corrosion on the connectors on the switch, or it could be a lot of different things, but there is no power coming through this power supply. So this one is going to require a full repair video, I think, to see if I can get it up and running. Now, I bet you're wondering, what did I pay for all this? So I picked up the Atari 800, I picked up 2 Kaypros, I picked up some little memory and some fans and things like that. How much did all this set back? Well, the grand total for this particular e-waste adventure was $45. That's right. I am so fortunate to have a great e-waste place that is willing to let me have access to this stuff and to purchase it and to save it for either myself or someone else to enjoy in the future. 45 bucks. I know I'm privileged. I know a lot of you don't even have access to e-waste, but hopefully you found this interesting. If you did, go ahead and give this video a like button, and that will help YouTube propagate my second channel here. Thank you so much to everybody that's subscribed already. Now, if you want more e-waste Wednesday videos, I'm going to put a video link up above here. You'll see it come on the screen. Just click that, and I will see you with more e-waste treasures in that video next. Bye-bye.
End of line.